Hector Bravo, unhinged. Chaos is now in session.
Welcome back to our channel's Warriors. Today, another banger for you guys. This time, 24-year career with the Border Patrol, U.S. Border Patrol. I was going to say California Border Patrol, but the border goes all the way. So 24 years of experience with 4 years ending in internal affairs special agent. We have none other than Alex. Alex, what up, dude?
What's up, Hector? Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it, bro.
Thanks for coming through, bro. So 24 years is a long time, man.
24 years is a long time, man, but it was a great career. You know, I started in 98, and I didn't know what I was going to be doing, right? I didn't have a direction in my life. You know, I didn't want to go to college. You know, I tried to play college football, undersized lineman, you know, went the JUCO route, got hurt. Like, man, what am I going to do? So I bounced around. You know, I bounced. I even started a partnership in a restaurant when I was young. Bartender, worked a lot of different jobs.
Are you from San Diego?
I'm from Los Angeles.
You're from LA.
Yeah.
So all of this stuff you were doing in LA?
Everything was in Los Angeles.
Everything was in Los Angeles.
Yeah. You know, I grew up on the east side of Los Angeles in the San Gabriel Valley.
Okay.
Place called Bassett. If you're familiar with like La Puente, West Covina area, Bassett is like a subdivision of La Puente. And that's kind of where I grew. Not kind of, that's exactly where I grew up. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I had no idea that, you know, I'd be on a podcast or, you know, talking about my life story, you know, 25, 30 years later.
Oh, that's the beauty of this, man.
Yeah,
it's a beauty.
It's fantastic. But yeah, I came into the Border Patrol not knowing what to expect, you know, honestly, assuming that, man, I'm going to do a couple years.
How old were you when you applied?
23, 24? I was 24 when I came on board. And my process went really fast. I got hired quick.
Where did you take the written examination, like at a school or something, or a hotel?
No, in downtown Los Angeles. I was driving down with my girlfriend, my wife now, and we were coming to San Diego, and we saw a billboard, right, for U.S. Customs Special Agent hiring. So I put in for the special agent test in downtown, took the test, and then when I was there, I saw a Border Patrol announcement. I was like, what the hell is a Border Patrol? Right? And so I put in for it. I got hired in 6 months.
You haven't seen the movie, what is it, Born in the East L.A.?
Of course I saw
the Border Patrol. They chase them over the hill.
That's the only experience I had with the Border Patrol. I knew nobody in it, you know, other than, you know, my abuelita, my grandma, when we were little, she would joke, hey, come inside, the migrants going to get you guys, right?
Right. But that's L.A., though, because I'm used to it because I lived on border towns, so they're there.
They were never, you don't see them in Los Angeles.
Correct.
They didn't exist, right? But
so what was that was drawing you to it? Was it the uniform, the gun, the federal job?
You know what? I was looking to get into law enforcement.
Okay.
I knew since I was a little kid, I want to be a cop.
Right.
You know, kids grow up playing cops and robbers.
Yeah.
Right? They don't grow up playing, you know, banker and attorney. Not that they're fantastic jobs and make a lot more than we do, but you know, I knew that's what I wanted to do. And, you know, I was putting in the shadow of the LA riots, Rodney King, you know.
What year was that?
94. Well, the LA riots were, I believe, 92.
Yeah.
I was 20 years old. So right around 92, 93, I said, man,
where were you during those riots? At home?
You know, I was at home. And a friend of mine was going to USC. And I remember talking to her later, and she had driven right past the intersection where they dragged Reginald Denny.
They hit him with a brick.
Yeah, they hit him with a brick. I can't remember the street, Normandy and something, and maybe Florence and Normandy. And she had driven right past that while she was at school. And I remember talking to her about it, and I was like, fuck, dude. Man, that's fucking wild. I remember seeing the cities burn. It was horrible. It was a terrible sight to see, you know?
So what was your mindset? Is like, hey, I'm watching my city burn down. I would like to join law enforcement?
You know what? That's not the reason why I did it. You know, where I grew up, you know, there in Bassett, we had LA County sheriffs. And I know the homies, right? I had a bunch of gangsters that grew around me.
Yeah.
All guys from, you know, I'm not going to mention the gang. I don't want to give them props. But, you know, I'm there at the park where I'm at, San Angelo Park. You see all the homies are all smoking weed and doing their thing, right? And the cops would roll in and they'd see me. It's like, what the fuck are you doing over here? Get away from those guys. A couple guys that were cool and said, hey, Pacheco, don't go that route, you know. Don't hang out with these dudes. They're bad news. Because they saw me. I wasn't a troublesome kid, right? And then when I went to high school, a lot of my coaches were police officers, you know, and they were great mentors. One of them took me.
That's good, dude.
One of them took me on a ride along, and I was sold.
There you go.
He worked LA County Sheriff's. He worked Century Station, and I went out on a ride along, and I said, "This is what I want to do the rest of my life. It was adrenaline dumping, and I was just sitting in the fucking car, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to do this. This is what I want to fucking do. Be a part of something bigger than myself.
No, I'm glad you gave that portion of your life, man, because it's really a fine line what direction a young
100%.
man goes, either left or right.
Dude, growing up where I grew up, I had a little kid, name was Johnny. We used to play at the park together. And I remember we got in a fight. We were like 10, 12 years old.
Yeah.
We got in a fight, stupid fight, right? Kicked him in the stomach. He falls down. He cries, stuff like that. And it was his like a brother or his tío. He was like a veterano, like old school veterano. And like the next day at the park, he hits me up. He's like, hey, you're the one that got in a fight with Johnny? I'm like, yeah. I thought he was going to kick my ass, right? And I think he just wanted to make sure that it wasn't some of the local homies that beat him.
Oh, okay.
It was like a little kid shit. So he was cool. But sadly, I remember like a year or two later, I think the kid was like, I want to say in 8th grade, 9th grade. He was killed in a drive-by.
Damn, dude.
2 blocks away from my house.
Damn.
Another guy he grew up with, his younger brother ended up doing a long stint shooting somebody. I can't remember how many years, 20, 30 years.
20-something. Yeah, 20-something.
Another guy I grew up with in my neighborhood, a year older than me. We shared similar birthdays. And we hang out when we were kids. Dude, he's been in and out of the penal system for as long as I can remember.
Oh, it's real, man. It's definitely real.
And you never know which path you're going to take. But I had great parents.
There you go.
Great childhood. Great, extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins,
and great mentors that were coaches.
And I wasn't looking for mentors because I had my father, who was, the most heroic person in my life. I didn't need anything else. But those guys pointed me in a different direction. Like, hey, man, what about this, Pacheco? And I'm like, you know what? I think it's something I want to do. And,
I think that's in us from tribal, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like instilling, guiding men in the right path.
Yeah, and we need more of those people.
Oh, bro, I didn't think we should do this podcast.
The world is lacking this type of mentorship.
Big time, huh?
Especially in especially like in Latino neighborhoods growing up. There's not a lot of I can't think of too many heroic law enforcement officers that look like me growing up. You had Punch.
Well, because they kind of move out of the the hood or whatever. They kind of.
But even on TV, you had Poncherello from CHP, but from Chips, but he's kind of goofy, right? He wasn't like a superhero. And every other time you see us on TV, he's a Latino cop, but he's corrupt or he's crooked or la chingada, right? You're just like, fuck, And you look at LAPD, you look at LA County Sheriff, shit. You look at the Border Patrol, it's like 50-60% first generation guys, Latinos.
Yeah, we're rolling deep, bro.
Yeah,
we're rolling deep, man.
Rolling deep for sure. Yeah.
So what did you end up joining? Was it because you mentioned customs and then Border Patrol? Which one?
It's funny. I ended up joining the Border Patrol because they hired me quick. I think start to finish, 6 months, bro. It was fast. And I had been processing with other agencies for LAPD a year and a half.
Right.
I wouldn't get past this part, whatever the case may be, right? And it was a challenging time for hiring, post Rodney King era. But when I got on, it was finally the Border Patrol. And it's funny, as I'm nearing the end of the graduations portion at the Border Patrol, 6 months, 5.5, 6 months.
The academy?
The academy.
Where was the location at?
Charleston, South Carolina.
Was that your first time leaving California?
First time leaving California on an extended period, and it was an eye-opener, bro.
And was it humid?
It was humid. It was hot. It was the first time I'd seen, growing up in SoCal, all my friends were black, Asian, white, Latino. You don't look at different colors because you're in this environment, right? And it was weird going out to like the city, and there's the black portion of Charleston, and there's the white portion of Charleston, and that's it, And they would intermingle, but it was weird to see these unofficial, at least to me, it would look like unofficial dividing lines, And I get there, and they're looking at me like, "Oh, well, what is this guy like?"
It's weird,
it's like
man.
a brother with straight hair. What is he? Because
everybody that I've interviewed, to include my own experiences, when we get out of our element and experience like other ethnicities or stuff like that, it's like, whoa, it's like an eye opener.
It really is. It really is. But no, it was a good experience. And at the end,
how was the physical portion, physical training? I would imagine it's physically demanding, dude.
It was demanding. It's supposed to be the hardest federal law enforcement academy, partly because of the paramilitary type structure, right? A lot of PT every day, great PT instructors, and you have to learn a foreign language.
And the terrain that you guys operate in.
Yeah, I spoke Spanish, so it was easy. But for like my brothers that didn't speak Spanish, they had to learn it before they graduated.
Fluently or just okay?
You have to learn it. I taught post academy, so before you have to get out of the academy, you go through these Spanish and law tests. Enough to communicate, understand the danger signals, somebody's trying to kill you, somebody's trying to harm you, and how to conduct some basic interview stuff. You know, put your hands up, don't move, what's your name?
Manos arriba.
Manos arriba, you know, how, you know, what's your name, you know,
Yeah.
where you come from, whatever the case may be. Real basic stuff, almost like minimal conversational type of things. So
Makes sense.
yeah, but you had to learn statutory, all the federal law, and then immigration law. So it was kind
man.
of challenging, you know. It was, but customs called me like 2 weeks before graduation. Hey, congratulations, you've been hired, special agent. Would you like to come on? I'm like, fuck that.
Right.
I mean, I just finished the academy. I've been away from my family, been away from my girlfriend, man. I don't want to do this again.
Were you homesick?
Oh, unbelievably, which
Yeah.
I didn't think I'd be. Like it was hard. Believe
I
it
know,
or not.
dude.
First time moving away, you know, my family was very tight knit. All the extended family. You know, I had my girlfriend, who's my wife now, and I was devastatingly homesick, which was weird. Like now I go away and I'm like, you know,
Were you questioning your decisions?
I think initially
Yeah.
questioning my decisions, like, man, what the fuck am I doing here? You know, am I going to make it through this? But I knew I would. You know,
Right.
you know, one foot in front of the other. And then afterwards, like now I look back and I'm like, man, I'd like to go back to Charleston. It was a good experience.
Yeah.
So
Do they let you get to pick what post you want to be
No.
stationed at?
no. In fact, when my mom got the letter, she opened it for me. She calls me at work. I'm bartending. She goes, hey, Migo, I think the Border Patrol hired you, but you're going to Texas. And I'm like, I didn't even rush home. I was like, fuck this. I'm not moving to Texas. I'm not leaving California, right? So I get home, I open up the envelope, and my initial look, it said Brownfield,
Right.
California. But I just saw like Brown in for whatever reason, my brain registered like Brownsville, Texas. And I'm
Right.
like, I put it down and I opened it back up and I'm like, Brownfield, California. So I opened up the Thomas Guide. Remember the old Thomas Guides?
Yeah.
Where the fuck is Brownfield? Boom. I'm like, oh shit, San Diego, California.
Yeah.
And then I called them back and I said, yeah, I'll take the job because I like San Diego.
So I was just talking to somebody that said Brownfield Border Patrol, and I confused it with Brownfield Airport. But no, they're saying more by El Campo and Dozura.
No. You are right. The old Brownfield station, the original, was right at the airport, right at the base of the airport.
Okay.
At the Brownfield. Then they moved it further south on
Okay.
Britannia. It's right on the border fence. In fact, do you know where CBX is? Are you familiar with it?
Give or take.
There's a bridge that goes
Right.
over. It's right on the other side of the TJ Airport.
Okay.
And they have that area, and they also have the 94 checkpoint.
I go
Now-
shooting over there, man. Pink Gate.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I saw your video. Yeah, I've gone shooting out. That's a
cool.
old school place. Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
good place. Nice and open.
So Brownfield Airport, that's where you, with your initial duty station?
Yeah, off of Britannia. It was near the border fence. Yeah.
And what was it like showing up, man? What was it like showing up?
You know what? It was. But I'll say this: the field training unit, at least in my opinion, the field training unit at Brownfield Station was more challenging physically than the academy.
Oh, I
I
bet.
mean, they kicked your ass.
I bet.
We had an SF guy and another training officer, real skinny guy, and their job was to take you on the mountain and smoke you, like I'd never smoked.
That
before.
was their job?
That was their job. And they wanted you to touch every canyon, walk through hit every seismic sensor, and we worked Old Time Mountain. So Old Time
It's
Mountain,
right across from Donovan Prison.
right across from Donovan Prison, bro.
I've ran up that fucking mountain numerous times.
Okay, so all the way up to Doghouse and all that stuff.
All the way
So-
to those little satellites.
So
up there.
those canyons, that's Doghouse up there. So those canyons, especially like Buttewig and Copper Canyon, these are those canyons where you drop down an hour, you're doubling it back up. Hour down, 2 hours up. 2 hours down, 4 hours up. Sagebrush, real thick, vegetation. It's rough, man. And they kicked your ass, but it's for a reason. Because if you're down at the bottom of a canyon, Hector, I need to know how to get to you. An injured agent, an injured migrant, whatever the case may be, we
Right.
need to be able to get down to get to them and save them.
So what was this portion, man? What was this portion like a on the job training?
No, you get out of the academy and you go to you report to your field training unit. Your whole team goes and you get split up, and they do like an area orientation because it's a massive area. I mean, it is massive. So you have to know the zones, you have to know the mountain, the mesa, all the different assignments before you get released onto your own. So you go from like a station training unit, and then you get assigned to your shift, and you have a field training. Your FTO.
How long is that initial portion of the
Gosh,
of the orientation?
I'm gonna say 3 months.
Fuck, dude.
Yeah, I'm gonna say 3 months.
Damn.
And then you do like another 3 months because once you graduate from
Would
It's
you have
changed
the
now.
old school Broncos?
The old school Broncos, yeah. They even had a few Blazers
Right.
when I came in, and we had some Vietnam era scope trucks. You know, these night vision trucks. So the new agents have no idea what I'm talking about because they got like fancy scope trucks. Dude, we had this Vietnam era scope truck that you'd have to sit in the back and move the scope with your feet. You're exposed to the elements, and you'd have to move it, like a turret. You'd have to wear earphones or head, ear protection because it was so loud. Bop, 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 bop. And you're sitting here looking through this crappy night vision screen as you're rotating around. So,
Do you have a driver?
you drive it yourself.
So you drive and you scope at the same time, or you park it?
No, you drive. You park to like the 56 scope site, specific scope sites. There were some areas like an area called the White Cross.
Yeah.
A lot of bandit activity where you'd have to have a White Cross scope, which was permanent there all the time, and a backup.
You said bandit activity.
Oh, yeah.
I'm somewhat aware of what a bandit is, but could you explain to the crowd what those are?
I'll preface it with this. Look, the border is a very violent place. There's an ebb and flow, right? It's depending on the times and generations and whatnot. It's always violent. Sometimes it's super violent. Sometimes it's less violent, but it's always violent. There are groups of individuals out there that patrol the border looking to exploit, extort, kidnap migrants. They assault them. They sexually assault them. It's horrific.
On which side of the border do they do this?
On both sides of the border.
Oh man.
Yeah, I supervised one of the teams and that's what we did. We investigated these types of bandit activities, and it was horrific. I mean, it was absolutely horrific. If you're robbing and kidnapping the poorest of the poor, the poorest in the world, you're a piece of shit. I mean, you're a piece of shit anyway. But it was really bad.
It's almost like my brain doesn't want to believe it, bro. But I trust you, and I know it's a thing.
There was, and I'm no longer in, but
Yeah.
our BORTAC guys, our SWAT team, which
Yeah.
are unbelievable.
Oh, they're fucking badass.
Dude, they're fucking badass, right? Yeah. Fuck you, BORTAC guys, fucking badass. They recently smoked a bandit on the U.S. side of the border.
Okay.
Within the last year.
Okay, you're right. And I did read about that.
Canoed him.
You're right. It was like a sniper, I think.
It was a sniper. The sniper canoed him. He was, trying to
Fucking
rob a migrant
A,
at
man.
gunpoint on the U.S. This was under the previous administration when the border was overran, right?
Right.
So yeah, bandits out there.
Damn, dude, that's so fucking wild, bro. I mean, bandits. We have pirates in Somalia, so I guess
Yeah.
still got that old school shit going.
Yep, for sure.
These bandits, how do they maneuver, man? Horses, dune buggies, quads, trucks.
You know what? I've never seen them on horses. You got to understand, like with the Mexican cartels, right?
Yeah.
If you cross the border, you got to pay plaza. Plaza's your toll.
Yeah.
You got to pay your vig, if you will, right? And so all these areas of the border are controlled by cartels, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't pay your plaza, you don't pay your toll, you can't operate there. So the bandits will be out there partly as enforcers, especially if it's a narco area. Don't move aliens in my narc area because you're going to bring too much attention, right? So they'll be out there actively looking for individuals that didn't pay their toll.
Let me ask you this. Do the cartel, I understand they own plazas or they control plazas.
Yeah.
Do they only control the point of entrance, meaning like where people walk in and out or drive in and out, or do they have like long lengths of the whole entire fence?
Well, you got to remember the border patrol doesn't work at the ports of entry. You have from like, let's just say Otay Mesa port of entry to Tecate port of entry.
But what does the cartel consider their plaza? The port of entry or the whole fucking thing?
The whole fucking thing. You go out towards like Rumorosa,
Yeah.
out near Campo, that's wide open. There's no port of entry.
So they consider that, hey, this is my plaza.
They own that area because
Okay.
that's where they're going to bring in the special interest aliens, the high dollar migrants, the Chinese, the people
Right.
from these third country nationals, or you're charging
India and shit.
Dude, when I was in, and this was when I was in, I think the average rate was like 65, 75,000 per for Chinese. It has to be over 100,000 per person. That's a lot of money. You bring in
And
10
the
migrants-
cartel have a monopoly over that? They control it?
Oh, they control the human traffickers. They control the human smugglers. Everything. You have to pay plaza. If you do anything illicit on the U.S.-Mexico border, you got to pay plaza.
And I know this is a kind of a dumb question, but what would happen if you go against them?
They're going to kill you.
Right.
And that's what the bandits are out there for.
Okay.
You know, they've killed agents on the U.S. side
Have
of the
they?
border.
Oh, Rosales.
Robert Rosas.
Rosas.
Robert Rosas, 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
He was murdered. And the interesting about that crew, I remember my crim squad, my criminal alien squad, we were, we did a lot of like special cases for the patrol, right? And one of the things that they'd had tasked us with was, hey, find out what's going on with this migrant kidnapping out in Campo. Now, there were other groups out there working the migrant kidnapping. This wasn't my case, but we were out there responding. And basically what this migrant kidnapping crew was doing was they would pretend to be smugglers. And they'd say, hey, you know what, Hector, you paid 10 grand to come across? We'll do it for 5. We have a special place to cross. Come out to the border. We walk out. We say, hey, there's bandits out here. Hey, Hector, wait right here. I'll be right back. I'm going to go check for bandits. Of course, they come back, balaclava it up, and they would do some extreme violence. They would fuck people up immediately, come back, boom, knock you upside the head and say, all right, Hector, call your family, tell them you made it to San Diego and to send the money now. And if not, they'd start beating the crap out of you. They'd sexually assault the women. So like if you imagine like if you have a female family member that's crossing the border and you've already vouched to the smuggler you're going to pay for her, and she sends you a video of her crying, the guy's groping her, sexually assaulting her.
Fucking nightmare.
What the fuck are you going to do? I'm going to send the money immediately, right?
Yeah.
And then what do? All this happens in the south side. They kick them north. They turn them into the Border Patrol, and they tell, hey, Border Patrol, this is what happened. So this kidnapping crew had lost their night vision goggles, and their boss was a murderous bastard, and he told them, I'm going to kill you guys if you don't bring my night vision goggles back. Now, there's much more to the story, but this will be a whole separate podcast, right? And again, not my case, but this is kind of what I know about it. And they went and they targeted Robert. They set him up to burglarize his vehicle, and he caught them in the act. And they had a Mexican standoff, and Robert was murdered. And this was, make no mistake about it, this was a cartel crew that was involved in narcotics trafficking and human trafficking who murdered a Border Patrol agent on the U.S. side of the border. And you would think this would be national news. You'd think there'd be fucking documentaries about it. Nada, bro. Nothing.
Bro,
Other
I'm
than
like
us talking about it.
shock right now that this story even came up, dude, because I believe he was a CO prior to becoming a Border Patrol agent.
He was from the Valley.
He's from El Centro,
He's from the Valley, yeah.
So, like, of course, it's well-known, small city, and yeah, that dude was murdered out in the mountains.
Yeah.
But, bro, I didn't even know that you knew about that situation or that we were going to talk about this.
Yeah,
situation.
you know what? We started talking about bandits, and when you talk about bandits
dude.
and
So that was
kidnapping,
that's what transpired?
That's what transpired, correct.
Fuck, bro. So,
Yeah.
like, dude, that's not small. That's major. Now,
it's major. Exactly.
So what kind of feedback was it from the Border Patrol as
an
an agency?
insofar as like the response to what
was the
happened?
response?
No. Yeah, it was all hands on deck. Every agency that you can imagine,
Because they caught the killers.
they caught every single one of them except the main leader. But as far as we know, they made him disappear. The cartels realized, like, what the fuck did you do?
But what happened? Did you guys put more agents in?
They not only did they put more agents on border, they brought all the intel assets together. We have a fantastic liaison program with Mexico. We really do. We have a great relationship with them, and they got them on board, and they tracked them down.
It doesn't take long, huh?
They found everybody. In fact, the former chief of police of Tijuana, a guy named Alejandro Lares, who's a good friend of mine. He's like a brother to me. And he's the one who caught the very last one in Tijuana, and the guy confessed on video as to everything that happened. I've seen the video. It's horrific. Again, not my case, but every Border Patrol agent knows about this.
Where did they get charged at? U.S.?
U.S.
Are they in U.S. custody?
Yeah, they're in U.S. custody.
Didn't even know that, dude.
Yeah, they're in U.S. custody. Yeah, they got whatever. I think there was a minor that was there.
Brian Terry was also killed.
Brian Terry. There's another example of Brian Terry being murdered out in Nogales, Arizona. I've worked out there, and there's RIP crews out there.
Hey guys, consider becoming a patron where you will get first exclusive dibs on the video before it airs to the public, and you'll get to ask the guests special questions that you have in mind. So that's also another way to support the channel. Thank you guys. Appreciate all of you. Keep pushing forward. Make sure you hit that link in the description below.
Bandit/RIP crews, and what they do is they rip off other drug smugglers.
Bro, this is a whole nother entity that I really didn't know, dude.
Oh man, it's agents have been ran over trying to lay out spike strips, taking these guys out.
I think there was another one that got hit in the head with a rock and killed up in like that area.
Oh, the guys get hit in the head all the time. I can't recall if there was one hit in the head that was killed.
I think there was.
But they've been shot, they've been ran over, and all over the border violence.
You go out in a single man unit.
Yeah, yeah. When I was in, and I think that's still the case. It's such a massive area. It's like we're here in downtown San Diego, right? And all of a sudden, you and I get assigned, and let's just say downtown San Diego is Zone 1. All right, you got the north side, I got the south side. That's it. That's it.
Dude, that's sketchy, bro.
And then you're out on foot, and I'm telling you, your nearest backup sometimes is 2 hours away, depending on the person's level of conditioning too. You might, some guys might take them 10 minutes to get down to you. Some might take 25.
Right.
They'll get there. Or what if you're uphill? It's even worse. I've worked out in Arizona on the Tohono O'odham Indian Reservation, where it's a 2.5 hour drive to the border.
Be honest with me, bro. Was there any time, well, I'm sure it happened often, where you were out there and you're like, man, this is eerie or this is sketchy?
Oh yeah, it's a sketchy area. You're working pitch black at night by yourself. You get a seismic. We have these seismic sensors all over the place. We call them bugs. One of the bugs goes off in Canyon X. You wait at the top of that canyon because that they're funneled in. They got to come out this canyon. And I'm laying there by myself, right? I'm hiding in the bush. 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, pitch black. It's freezing cold. It's me at the time with my Beretta, right? Beretta 40 cal. I got no long arm. I'm sitting there, and you can hear the whispers. You can hear these groups coming up.
Oh, hell no, bro.
You don't know if it's a group of migrants. You don't know if it's drug smugglers. Well, San Diego's not that many drug smugglers, but like in Arizona, you didn't know what the hell you were dealing with, right? And it could be backpackers. You never know, armed, unarmed, and you're laying there. And as you get closer, depending on the breeze, you can smell, human sweat. You can hear people talking, and then you just surprise them. Boom, down there, bear on the ground. And then you're hoping your partner's on the other side, or you're arresting, 20, 30 people by yourself.
Dude, that's like the Wild West, man.
Dude, I've been out there with groups, I kid you not, in Arizona where they were in excess of 100 people. And
no fucking way, dude.
Oh, ask any Border Patrol agent that's worked in the late 90s, 2000s, even now. Oh, yeah, out in Arizona, the TO res at a certain time period, 2-3 guys, you're taking down groups of 100.
What were you doing in Arizona? You had a duty change?
No, so we get detailed a lot.
Okay.
So you get detailed a lot. So I started at Brownfield Station. That was my station for a very long time. But I had a unique career. Like more or less 17 of the 20 years I did with the Border Patrol, I was either on a task force or assigned to what we call an intel unit. So I was a plainclothes guy, right? But early on, I got temporary detailed to El Centro, Calexico.
What were you doing in El Centro and Calexico?
Again, so this was during... No. This was uniform. This is when I was in uniform, yeah. They did this Operation Gatekeeper where they were, we didn't have the manpower. There was no infrastructure. They were shutting down the border. So when we shut down San Diego as best as we could, wherever we go to, El Centro. So boom, let's send more agents out there. So El Centro, Calexico, Ajo, Arizona, Casa Grande, Nogales, Douglas. Those are the 6 stations I've been detailed. Oh, and Tucson, which was my favorite.
The ones you just stated in Arizona right now, are they directly on the border?
All of them.
Those are all on the border.
Well,
right
Casa
there?
Grande and Tucson Station are not on the border.
Okay.
You have to drive through the Tohono O'odham Indian Reservation. Nogales on the border.
Okay.
Douglas on the border. Ajo, not technically on the border, but it's so far south into the Indian Res. I think we were, I would say 40 minutes from the border.
So knowing what you know in your experience, it differs. On this side of the border, San Diego differs from El Centro and Calexico. 100%. It differs from Nogales. What about on that side of the border?
Insofar as what, like you're talking about terrain? You're talking about what?
Culture or society in Mexico. I'm talking about like Tijuana, Tecate.
They're all different.
They're all different?
They're all different. The people, and you still have this border culture. Well, if you haven't lived on the border, and we do,
right?
There's a true cross-border culture. Half my friends live in Tijuana and work here. They go back and forth. I spend a lot of time in Tijuana, not as much as I used to, but I still go down there, right? And it's an experience unlike anywhere else. But we're a major metropolitan city, San Diego and Tijuana. You go to Nogales, Arizona, and Nogales, Sonora are small cities. It's like putting maybe like San Isidro or smaller on the border, right? surrounded by nothing. That's the one I can really speak to because that's the one border station that I worked at.
Now, I know when you get to Juarez, Mexico, I've never fucking been there, but from what I've seen on the news, Juarez seems to be off the hook.
I went to Juarez when I was little. My father and his family were originally from Juarez, but I have family in El Paso, but I haven't worked. I really don't know much about the Texas border because I never.
So Arizona in this way.
Arizona in this way. Texas border. You got the Rio Grande,
right?
You got South Texas. You have it's a whole different dynamic.
So how was your experience in Arizona? Different?
When I was in Tucson, I just become a supervisor. I get sent out there. In 45 days in Tucson, Arizona, I learned more about being a Border Patrol agent and supervisor in 45 days than I did in like a year of being a Border Patrol agent in San Diego. It's like a crash course. It's nuts. Car chases every night, literally. Sometimes at least 2 a night, right? Car chases, massive groups. Small ones 20, big ones 100. You came across narcotics, marijuana backpackers, not every night, but 2 or 3 nights.
A lot of dope. Are they carrying a lot of dope?
Oh, dude, anywhere from 200 to 2,000 pounds.
Like bundles on their fucking
bundles,
back.
backpackers. There's this one place in Arizona called TB Ranch. There's Tres Bellotas Ranch. And it's right on the area where Nogales and Tucson meet. It's kind of like that no man's land, right?
Yeah.
And they would come up this ridge line. Dead Horse, maybe? I can't remember the name of the ridge line. And there was this place called TB Ranch. And I remember laying in one night with a bunch of San Diego agents, right? We knew there was some dope coming through. They came in on horseback. They looked like mattresses on the back of the horses. Like this, bro.
Holy shit, dude.
And we had to let them go. You know why?
Why?
Because we're out there on detail. All we have is our little pea shooter, 40 cals. A couple guys had shotguns because there's not enough M4s to go around at the time, right?
Yeah.
And 2 of the guys were armed, and we had to let them go. Like, you just sit there, you're laying in, and you're like, nope, it's not worth it.
Oh, you had to let them go, meaning there was not a confrontation?
There was not a confrontation.
Okay.
Now, they got caught the next day.
Right.
Because once you're committed, you're committed.
I'm not even knocking you, bro. That's strategy, bro. It's survival.
Yo, it's strategy. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And a good friend of mine told me this. You're going to agree. If you find yourself in a fair fight, your tactics suck.
Not only that, man. There's not enough dope in the world to equal a human life.
No, not at all. Not at all. They got caught because we knew they were committed to a certain point.
Right.
You got to check your ego and be smart and say, you know what? Don't have that tombstone courage. Fuck
Correct.
that. Let them go.
Yeah.
They're gonna get, and if they don't get caught,
at least you didn't fucking die. I get it. I totally get it, bro.
Yeah.
Survival.
Exactly.
You mentioned supervisor, man. What is like the rank structure from like regular Border Patrol agent and then you move up to
when I came in, obviously you have trainee, then you have Border Patrol agent. At the time, we had senior patrol agents.
Okay.
And then first line supervisor is like a sergeant for us.
Were you a sergeant?
I was a sergeant. Well, we're supervisors,
right?
But we have it's funny, we had captain's bars as supervisors.
Okay.
That was our sergeant rank. And then lieutenant, which is for us is a field operations supervisor at the time. I think they call them watch commanders now.
Yeah.
But when I came in, they were field operations supervisors. And then you have the deputy patrol agent in charge, which is like the captain of the station, and then the patrol agent in charge, which is like the chief of a station, if you will. And then, of course, we have the management headquarters element with assistant chiefs, deputy chiefs.
As a sergeant, are you still in the field?
Oh, yeah.
As a lieutenant, are you in the field?
No.
No, huh?
No, I did not want to promote past first liner. I am a true.
I would want to be in the AC, bro.
I'm a true knuckle dragon, mouth breather. I really am. And I loved it. I did the acting stuff for a couple times. The second, I didn't like it. I'm not a desk guy. I'm not an admin guy. And and there are guys that are really good at those positions. And God bless them, because I don't want to do that. But once you go past first liner, turn in your gun, turn in your badge. You don't need it. You're not going to arrest bad guys. You're not fighting the crime. You can do the job with a rolled up newspaper.
I get it.
I like being in the field. You ask any team I supervised, any team I was with, I was out there with the guys all the fucking time. From the beginning of the shift to the end of a 20-hour shift, I'm there with them.
I know you mentioned you did a lot of cross-border work.
Yes.
How did that play out?
So early on in my career, I got detailed to our intelligence unit. Right, we had an intel unit, and I was doing interviews. I had good Spanish skills, and I had a knack for getting people to tell me, what I needed to tell them. I'm just nice to people. I talk to them. Hey, you want some water? You want a sandwich? You want whatever? Me tiraban la sopa. They tell me everything, bro. They tell me the whole.
Were there tryouts, or is it just kind of like, hey, I know Alex is good at this?
You know what? I was
pick
already
him.
down there teaching Post Academy,
Okay.
Spanish and law. I knew some people, so when the opening came up,
You were slotted.
I put in.
Okay.
Obviously, there's a process,
Correct.
but there's also another process, right? So
You guys got to do it for formalities.
yeah, I kind of knew I was already going to be going there,
Right.
and I got there, and my career was never the same. And what ended up, this is another thing you might blow you away a little bit, because it blew me away. So I'm answering the phone at the Border Intelligence Center, right? I'm just a phone guy, boom, doing intel, but answering. And I get a call from the Mexican Attorney General's office. They're here in downtown San Diego. Say, hey, Alex, this is Miguel Mendez with PGR. Can you run this guy for me? Yeah. He's a previously deported, blah, blah, blah. Hey, can you go find him for me? And I'm like, well, why do you want me to find him for you? Well, he's got a murder warrant out of Mexico. Like, shit, all right. Go out, do surveillance, find where his vehicle's registered to, go out there. We see the guy. He's here without legal documentation. And we arrest the guy. And I call up Miguel, and I go, hey, dude, we got him. And he looks, he goes, you got him? I'm like, yeah, he was here undocumented. Where do you want me to turn him over? So we took him over to the old Whiskey 2, and he had a murder warrant out of Jalisco. He was the first one I caught. And that opened up this whole world of going after fugitives from Mexico that were wanted for murder, kidnapping, major narcotics trafficking, that were living in the United States illegally, that nobody was looking for, bro. There's no record of them in Interpol. There's no red notice. There's no NCIC shit. There's nothing like that. It was because I knew you and you knew me, and you knew that I'd go out and hunt these guys down, and that stayed with me through a big portion of my career.
So what? Holy shit, dude. What resources were you allowed to use? Could you use local PD? Could you use U.S. Marshals?
Didn't need them.
Didn't need them. Now, what legal jurisdiction did you have chasing these guys down?
Dude, they're in the eyes of the United States. think about this. In the eyes of the United States, they're here as undocumented migrants. That's what we go after him for. Guy doesn't have he doesn't have a legal right to be here. We'd arrest him in the eyes of the U.S. It's an administrative violation. We'd get him to sign what was called a voluntary return. Do you want to go back to Mexico? Sign right here. I'll have you back in 5 minutes, bro.
Get him to sign.
And he would walk back into Mexico. There used to be this gate called Whiskey 2, right? Like this Jurassic Park type of gate, right? And we would turn him over, and you'd have INAMI, which is Mexican immigration, waiting there.
Was he in handcuffs while he was in the U.S. side?
Handcuffed, shackled, the whole, yep. Walk him up to the gate, and that's where every migrant would go through at the time.
Are civilians able to see a handcuffed guy walking around? Or do you guys put a coat over him?
No, they'd see a handcuffed guy walking around.
A handcuffed guy?
And we usually did it undercover at dark. There weren't a whole lot of people, late at night, sometimes during the day. But
And what are you guys wearing? Civilians?
civvies, I got my badge, and that was it. 2-3 of us go driving
And
down
what
the
is
border.
what are these suspects' demeanors? Cool, defeated, angry?
The great thing about it is I don't have to tell this guy he's wanted for murder.
But he knows he's wanted for murder.
But I didn't tell him. He thinks he's getting arrested for immigration violations.
Oh, okay.
It's almost our version of a wall stop.
Holy shit, dude.
Some of them knew. They knew. I had one guy piss himself when he got there. When he saw the cops that came from him, oh yeah, he threw his head on the ground like he was freaking out. The Mexicans are pulling him through the fence. Somebody may or may not have been pushing him through.
Yeah.
But it was
Bro, that's gangster shit. That's like Wild Wild West shit.
It was Wild Wild West. You know what's funny? When we were doing it, it happened so often that it didn't document it,
We didn't document it?
No. Insofar as like me historically thinking down the road, like people say, how many did you get, Pacheco? I'm like, I have no idea.
How many do you think?
In the teens, 14, 15 murders?
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
That is a lot. One is a lot.
It's a lot. Hands-on of those 14 or 15, at least 10 here in Southern California. The other ones we coordinated. They're transferred from New York. We got an assassin in Sandusky, Ohio. Transferred him to the border and then turned him over, whether it be to TJPD, to the Peppos, the state police, or the feds, or the military.
Now, what habits or routines did they develop? I mean, did they all like live lavishly, live poorly, hiding out?
No, I'll say this. The reason we were able to catch the vast majority of these guys was the cops out there would do good field interviews. And say you get stopped, Hector, and you're with Joseph. When Joseph's the guy we're looking for. And you get stopped for a vehicle stop, but Joseph's kind of hinky. So that cop decides on that vehicle stop to say, Hector Bravo got a citation for speeding, and Joseph was in the car with him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a good FI. So to my brothers in blue out there, do good FIs. The guy's hinky, write it up, because you never know. This FI from 3-4 years ago was the key. This is how I found this guy. He's rolling with Hector. Joseph's not documented anywhere, but he's Hector's homie. Let's follow Hector.
Wow, dude.
You know, so we were able to catch a lot of guys. You know, we would do our deconfliction through text. We'd do our deconfliction through LACC or the NIN at the time, and none of these guys. There was like one guy. You did mention the U.S. Marshals. There was a couple of marshals that did help us, especially the coordination of the turnovers, or they also had some of the similar warrants. But, you know, we were able to go out. You know, we had access to kind of do what we wanted.
Now flip the script on me, because recently we had an inmate escape from the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation
Yep.
by the name of Cesar Hernandez. He fled to Tijuana. Flip the script. What does that look like? Same exact way? You contacts down there and say, hey, this is who we
You know, it all
need?
depends. You know, I worked in our foreign liaison unit for 1 year. I did liaison for most of my career, but I was officially just doing liaison work for 1 year. So these PDs, TJPD, the state police, the investigators, they'll have liaison guys, and we have direct comms with them. And especially the Border Patrol has a great liaison program, as does DEA and HSI. They have people embedded at the consulates and whatnot. And that's it. Hey, Hector, I need you to help me find this guy. In fact, I can't remember the guy's name. I helped him coordinate turnover a guy who murdered his grandmother and one other person. I want to say, I can't remember, but it was as simple as calling up TJPD. Cero Once was the liaison guy. Cero Once. Hey, Cero Once, ¿qué pasó? You know, blah, blah, blah. Hey, can you, this is the plate. I saw it cross into Mexico 2 hours ago. Can you go find him? 4 or 5 hours later, hey, bro, here's a picture of the plate. Is this the guy? Yep. And they got a picture of the guy in handcuffs. And they would drive him up to the border and turn him over. And you're like, sometimes, dude, it's just a matter of networking and knowing the right people.
How would you define that relationship? Is like I scratch your back, you scratch mine, a necessary evil, a good thing? How would you define that relationship?
You know, sometimes there's quid pro quo. It depends on who you're dealing with. I thought it was a fantastic relationship. Yeah, it's the guys we worked with in the liaison unit, and I'll use the former chief as an example, Alex. The guy's as trustworthy as they come. He really is. He's like this Alex Ladas is like, he was like the Elliot Ness of Mexico. I tell you, they tried to kill him a couple of times. You know, he was a chief. He's been dragged through the dirt in the media. You know, the guy's a fucking hero. He's a fucking hero. And there's a lot of Mexican police officer heroes out there, but all we hear about is the bad shit. Why? Because it's 90% of it, right? But there are guys that do some heroic shit, but they're just in a fucked up situation. You know, you and I work law enforcement. The worst thing that I can imagine happening, you know, in my life is, you know, some other cop trying to hit on my wife. You know, not some cop telling some bad guy, hey, this is where Alex and Hector live.
Right.
You know, go kill them. They're the guys that arrested you. Or, hey, go do this. You know, they're not going to cops aren't going to give you up here.
Right.
Because they're not embedded like that. Down there, who do you trust?
So let me ask you this. You've seen a lot of Mexican police officials be heroic, but is it worth it? Meaning, like you said, dude, like, are they making a dent in the, or are they ultimately going to, you know, be exterminated?
Yeah, it's tough, man.
Is it like a fucking martyr or one-way mission?
It could be. You know, I look at the status of the state of Mexico right now in this way, where go back to Prohibition era Al Capone shit.
Okay.
Chicago, corrupt mayors, corrupt politicians, corruption in the police force. It's rampant. The fucking heroes, the hero back then was Al Capone. Everybody wanted to be Al Capone. They want to be at all these dinners. And I think a lot of that is still applicable in Mexico, right? Not everywhere, but a lot of it. It's going to take a generational change. Look at us. 50s, 60s, you still have corruption. 70s, you have corruption. We have corruption now, but it's more like, you know, a guy kicked his ass too much. You know, he used excessive force, whatever the case may be. Do we have flat out corrupt cops? Absolutely, because power corrupts. But we got to this point, and it took generations. It's going to take generations of these heroic guys to keep saying, you know what, I got to keep moving forward because I'm part of something bigger than myself.
Right.
They don't get paid crap, bro. They don't get paid anything. A chief of police in Tijuana is making $35,000, $40,000 a year.
No way, dude.
Oh yeah, and that's the top dog. Officers are making $700-800 a month. How many officers could you and I corrupt? And we're not rich.
The whole fucking task
Think about
force.
it.
Yeah, for money.
You and I split $350 a month.
Yeah.
That's not even a car payment.
Right.
And we want this cop, working for us.
Yeah, either just look the other way or give us a call on the radio. And
The last homicide guy I turned over, he was a former TJ cop. He'd been living up in Southgate for about 10 years. And the Policía Estatal Preventiva, they gave me the tip. They knew where he was. We arrested him. And during his interview, he talks about the corruption and the slippery slope. Like, hey, man, like, he talks about all kinds. I have the video. He talks about all kinds of crazy stuff where he tried to get out of it, and he had no internal affairs to report to. He had no HR,
Right.
nowhere to go. He talks about this guy named Muletas that he stopped. Muletas was like a heavy hitter, an assassin. And they ask him, hey, you ever come across Muletas? And he tells us in Spanish, he goes, nah, the only time I came across him, I stopped him by accident one time.
fuck.
And he got out of the car and he bitch slapped me, and he gave me my life because I didn't know who he was. So can you imagine the biggest gangster in your prison walking up to you and going, whack, and you can't do shit about it?
That's wild, dude.
That's fucking wild. But he's also the same guy that took, have you familiar with the pozolero? The pozolero is the guy up at the ranch that turned bodies into pozole, this Mexican stew, caustic soda.
When you said that, I thought about los palillos.
Okay, and the palillos were turning people in the pozole
Yeah.
in the United States, in Chula Vista, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this guy was in charge of this region of Tijuana. He was like a sergeant. And when they finally corrupted him, his job for 6 months was to escort bodies that were going to the pozolero. Vans would show up. They'd pay him $500 a van load, and he would clear out the area, and he would escort these vans up to the ranch. And he said he did it 2 to 3 times a week for 6 months.
Oh, my God, dude.
Average of 2 bodies, sometimes up to 5.
Oh, my God, bro.
So in 6 months, how many bodies this guy,
What was he, melting them in acid?
he wasn't.
No, but they were up going to the top to get melted in acid?
What they have is they have these 55-gallon drums, and
Yeah.
they create this caustic substance with, muriatic acid and boric acid and Lord knows what, and it melts the body into goop. It destroys
To include bones?
everything but the teeth, from what I recall, because I've seen some of it. In fact, the palillos dump bodies here by the Imperial Beach horse barns, and I've seen the pictures from the investigators I know there, and all there is little Tic Tacs. It's a mash of human gunk with a few teeth in there. How are you going to identify that person?
Can't. There's no identifying that
There's
person.
no identifying that. And this ranch, the Pozoleros Ranch, had thousands of bodies.
Was this in Tijuana?
This was in Tijuana, yeah. Yeah, it's in Tijuana.
Oh, that's fucking foul, bro.
It's-
I've seen all those videos,
it's
the
wild.
execution videos, dude. And I can't
Well,
watch them anymore, bro.
It's horrific. I got enough fucked up shit in my head. I don't need more.
I don't
more
understand.
bad visuals.
I mean, besides evil, I don't know if it's a dope that makes them do it or.
I don't know. Yeah, but it's
So
evil, man.
You mentioned all these murderers from Mexico. Who did these people murder in Mexico?
Some were, the couple of guys I got had murdered Mexican police officers. A couple of them had, not a typical homicide, guys. The first guy I got had shot somebody out of a nightclub. It was like a DV type of thing. Guy tried to his wife, fuck you. Boom, he smoked them, and then he fled to the United States, because he knows nobody's going to be looking for him.
How does one flee to the United States, especially if you're an illegal alien?
Well, you come in illegally. You come in undocumented. You jump the fence.
Let me ask you, you're freaking experienced. How easy or hard is it to illegally enter the United States of America?
I think it depends on the time frame. Right now is the toughest time in U.S. history to cross the border. Right now, at this very moment.
What about a couple months back with my boy Biden?
Oh, under your boy Biden, the border was wide open. You could just show up. It was Border Patrol agents were quitting in droves. It was a horrible time to be a Border Patrol agent, to work in the border. The border was completely and utterly unsecured.
I seen him, Hakumba.
Dude, I have worked under 4 or 5 different administrations, including the previous. I'd never seen it as wide. It was embarrassing. Border Patrol agents I knew were quitting. They were processing is what they turned into. They weren't allowed to work the border.
Who were the presidents you worked under? Obama?
I worked under Clinton, Obama, Bush,
And Biden.
Biden, and Trump.
And Trump.
Trump won.
That's
Yeah.
5.
Yep.
And
Even under Obama, the times were
okay,
better.
bro. Now we're gonna get into the juicy stuff. People love this. 5 freaking presidents, right? Did they all differ? Your experience working on the border?
You know, they all differed, but none of them were as extreme as under the Biden administration.
From your opinion, what caused that extreme?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Well, where do you think it came from? Did it come from weak leadership within the Border Patrol that succumbed and bent the knee? Did it come from federal orders?
What Biden did was he did not allow Border Patrol agents to do their job.
But that's fine.
What I'm saying is, and let me finish, like under the previous administrations, the laws are on the book to enforce the border. And those laws were basically taken away under the Biden administration. They weren't allowed to do their job. All Trump has done is saying, hey, the book's open, go do your job. That's all that has changed.
But did the book remain during the Biden administration?
Yeah, the book was still around, but they just weren't able to enforce the law because they had exploited this asylum and everybody was coming across claiming asylum. There is a valid reason for people to seek asylum, but everybody knew that you can just show up at the U.S. border. I'm here seeking asylum. We're going to give you a phone. We're going to let you come into the United States.
What year did Biden become into office? Because I like to try to connect the dots, bro, and see where America went wrong.
2020. Right, remember right after COVID.
2020 is a lot of weird shit happened, man. Weird shit started happening in 2012 and on forward. But 2020,
2020
is when the assholes really tried to do a number on us.
Yeah, they really
as a country.
Yeah, they really did, for sure, for sure, man.
You said Border Patrol agents were quitting by the droves,
retiring as soon as they possibly could because you weren't working the border. They were literally processing, welcoming people with open arms that we didn't know who they were, that had no legal right to be here, claim asylum. And when you claim asylum, claim it at the first friendly country that you can claim it in. That's Mexico.
Military age males.
Yeah, it was. I've seen the border in a lot of different regions, right, all over the world, and it was wide open here. It was a travesty, It was a travesty. Oh, but now that's gone. It's fixed.
It is gone. It is gone. But I want to. I mean, you're the expert, bro. You're the expert in that field, man. Can you foresee that repeating ever again in the history of the United States?
Yeah, you get a whole new administration. Absolutely, somebody that wants to have an open border type mentality and allow people to flood in. And they came in. Hey, we came under the administration of President X, right? And now there's this mass. What's the word I'm looking for? This where a lot of people get their citizenship. I'm having a little bit of a senior moment here, but basically they're allowing everybody to come in.
No, not naturalization.
Not naturalization. They did it under Reagan. Amnesty.
Okay.
So you let 30, 40 million people into the country, right? And all of a sudden you're given amnesty under President X's administration. Guess what? When you vote next, you're probably going to want to vote for President X because he gave you amnesty.
There you go.
Now you're changing. You have a whole influx of 30, 40 million people that are voting for.
Do you agree on this next statement that I'm about to say, or do you disagree? They utilized illegal aliens as a form to get more voters for them.
I believe so. 100%. 100%. I believe that's what the Democratic Party did.
And same with convicted felons and undocumented.
Well, the convicted felons aren't going to be able to vote, right? Because even if they get their amnesty, but the people that are able to naturalize and become U.S. citizens are going to be able to vote. And I believe that was a big portion of it. I really do. We need to know who's coming into the country. We need to adopt Mexico's immigration laws. Give me Mexico's immigration laws, right?
That's
easy to deport.
Fucking wild.
You have to have a national ID to vote. They're very stringent.
That's fucking wild, bro.
Yeah.
So now let's look at the other side of the coin. Trump comes in, and now I don't know what a border czar. What is a border czar or whatever?
You talking about Tom Homan?
Yeah. What is that position?
He's just in charge of the border. He's the CBP director is Rodney Scott, who's the former chief, fantastic leader.
Okay.
Tom Homan is our Secretary of Homeland Security.
Okay.
And from what I've heard, I've never met the man. I've seen him on TV. He's a former Border Patrol agent, and I've heard nothing but good things about him.
So now they're doing these mass deportations as a result of the laxed laws with the previous administration.
Yep.
What's your take on that? I mean, you see it for what it is. I see it for what it is.
I'm glad they're doing it. And you have to, you know. When I had my criminal alien squad, that's what we did. We went after previously deported aggravated felons and gangsters with guns. That was our focus. That's all we did, and it was easy. It was so easy.
Easy, but was it dangerous?
Unbelievably dangerous. Unbelievably dangerous. But we were averaging, I kid you not, 2 to 3 felony callers a week. It's a lot of felony callers. We were locking people up left and right. This was 5 guys. 5 guys. 5 of the hardest working brothers you've ever met. I mean, I love those guys. We're still tight to this day.
What is your take on the mainstream media trying to give a heads up to these deportations?
Oh, it's fucking bullshit. It's criminal. Yeah, it's conspiracy to smuggle aliens.
To aid and abet.
To aid and abet, 100%. Yeah, 100%. I saw something today where they were potentially thinking about filing charges against some Democrat politicians who pushed some ICE agents. It's assault.
I seen that. Yeah,
it's just, I haven't seen the video.
I seen it. They broke into an ICE detention center.
But I read about it, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous.
Right.
You know.
Well, we see eye to eye, bro.
Yeah, absolutely we do.
So now, tell me about. I mean, fuck, dude, you were running and gunning through the mountains of Cali and Arizona. How did you end up in this Office of Internal Affairs position?
Well, you know, like I said, I had a unique career. You know, I go to Intel, and then, you know, I get the opportunity to go to something called the Smuggling Interdiction Group. So, you know, I had a few mentors in the Border Patrol. One, a guy by the name of Donald McDermott. He passed. He was my Border Patrol mentor. And this guy had started this unit called the Smuggling Interdiction Group, right? The border was wide open, not because we weren't doing our job. It's just we were getting overran. Smugglers were FTYs, wrong way drivers, bandit activity, you name it, criminal aliens running fucking everywhere. And I was able to be brought onto that team. And he goes, hey, you know, he had this real thick New York accent. Hey, Pacheco, you know, I need you to do the fucking thing and come on and help me out. And I went on there, and it changed the entire trajectory of my career, of my life, really. And so the criminal alien squad were running and gunning. But inevitably, when you're doing this stuff, you have corruption issues. You come across corruption within your own agency. One of my classmates, a guy I know well, I know his face. You know, previously when I'd see him, I'd, you know, give him a hug. We hung out at the academy. He's corrupt. Him and his brother were corrupt Border Patrol agents, the Villarreal brothers, right? They were smuggling aliens. Brazilians.
Did they get
they got
sentenced?
Time. Oh, yeah. Well, they fled to Mexico. Somebody tipped them off. They fled to Mexico, and they were down in Mexico for several years. They were, I can't remember if they were extradited or if they turned themselves in or they were captured. I can't recall, but they ended up doing time here. I can't remember how much time. I had another agent that was assigned to one of my squads. So when I had the criminal alien squad, we evolved into something called the Border Crime Suppression Team. It was my team of Border Patrol agents and a CBP officer, and then it was 12 deputy sheriffs that were the SRT.
That's awesome, bro.
Oh, they were fucking awesome. These SRT guys, they were amazing. They've all moved on, either retired or moved on to very high-ranking positions within the sheriff's department.
And they probably got better party favors, like chemical agents.
Oh, they
less
had
lethal.
You know, we were doing a lot of warrants, kicking in doors with these guys, left and right. We were doing a lot of international controlled deliveries with them, and it was fantastic work. That was a lot of fun. But yeah, it was a good, very good time period to be working with all of those. But you'd ask me a question. I started talking about the different squads. Oh, how did I get into the internal affairs? So there was a guy that was assigned to my squad, recommended by a couple of senior leaders that I knew. My gosh, and they said, "This guy, his name's Noe Lopez. Hey, this guy is a good guy. He's a little quirky, but bring him on." Immediately upon bringing him on, we knew something was up with this guy. He was, I want to say corrupt, but there was something off. And he ended up attempting to smuggle cocaine on duty with an undercover FBI agent in uniform.
Fucking kidding me,
he
bro.
did 5 or 7 years in the pen.
Yeah, because the FBI investigate corrupt cops.
Yeah, the FBI, you know what? When it comes to public corruption,
right,
they're fantastic. I give them that.
Fucking half of them are corrupt themselves, but I hear what you're saying.
But on the public corruption side, when I've done those cases with them,
they're good at what they do.
Public corruption.
Yeah. Dude, real quick, before we jump on to more of I forgot to even touch on tunnels. You have any experience in tunnels, or like what's with the tunnels?
Not really. Yeah,
You got Otay Mesa.
Not really. You know, I've been in one tunnel. I'm a little claustrophobic, and I'm
Yeah.
kind of a big guy, so I'm going to fit in these tiny ass tunnels. But we've worked a little bit of them. But I am not a tunnel guy, so I couldn't speak to them. Now, you talk to the tunnel task force guys. I know people that have been in them. I know about them.
Are they common?
Common, yeah. I can't tell you how often.
Okay.
But I know in Otay Mesa, it's the one region in the United States where they're all built. It's something about the water table, something about the land there itself that it allows you to build tunnels. You know, Chapo built that first super tunnel in the 80s, right? And I want to say the next 10, 15 tunnels were an offshoot of that. You got this big super tunnel, right? Boom, massive tunnel. We find it, we shut it down. The U.S. remediates their portion of it. Mexico doesn't remediate. They don't fill it up with cement. They probably throw some chairs and piles of dirt in there, right?
Yeah.
And then what do the smugglers do? They use that existing wall. They build another tunnel, so you have to build one wall. See what I mean? They use it as a structure from that. They build it right up, and it offshoots. And they find that one, they go to the other side.
Fucking believable, dude.
I remember seeing a graphic one time. I think it was from National Guard, and they showed like the historical tunnels, and they kind of mapped it out on a grid.
There's a fucking highway down there.
It looks like Swiss cheese, bro.
I didn't even think about that.
It looks like Swiss cheese, bro.
All you got to do is use that one wall already. You have one wall.
Yeah. Now, there have been other tunnels that have been separate from there in other regions, but
that's
there's quite
easy,
a
bro.
few
Work smarter, not harder.
That have come off that. But no, I'm not a tunnel guy.
Okay.
I'm not a tunnel guy.
So you get in this new position. What are the duties of your?
Are we talking about with SIG, with the Crim Squad?
With
Oh, so I went to OPR. So I did 20 years with the patrol. I did all these task forces. I didn't want to promote. I was feeling a little unchallenged. I had literally done every task force. I either participated in every task force or I supervised the guy that had been in all the task forces available to us. I'm like, man, what am I going to do? So I'd had some experience dealing with corruption. My classmate, the guys I talked about,
Right.
the CBP guy on our team that resigned in lieu of type of thing. And I had been the subject of investigation, and I'd been a witness there because people make allegations. Obviously, I'm still here. Obviously, I went to OPR and
Right.
I'm vetted, so it was all bullshit.
Absolutely.
But my buddy John was one of the ASACs over there, and I knew a few of the other agents. And at the time, I thought they were very professional. I liked what they did, and I took a gamble. Told my wife, "Hey, I'm taking off for another 4 months. You okay with this?" It's I get this 1811, this special agent position. And I had to go to another academy at 46, 47 years old. Luckily, it was a gentleman's academy.
You said 1811.
1811 is the category. All special agents, FBI, DEA, U.S. Marshals,
I didn't know that.
ATF, they're categorized as special agents 1811.
I didn't know that.
It's a series. It's a federal series.
right.
Kind of like, I was in the military, but like whatever your MOS is, you get
Okay.
these categories, right? Border Patrol agent 1896. Not criminal investigators. All right, they can investigate, they can pursue cases, enforce immigration law and whatnot, but not criminal investigators.
Gentlemen's Academy, man. Those are nice.
It was nice. You still had to run, you still do the 1.5 miles and PT and in the DTAC, that was easy. You have to go through the whole thing, but there was no real time limit. The Border Patrol, you had to run your 1.5 miles in under 11 minutes, 12 minutes, something like that, right? There, you said to run 1.5 miles, right? So, which is 47. You
can do it, huh?
I can go run 1.5 miles like this right now. It's going to take me a while, but I'm going to get it done, right? I'm going to get it done.
Check, completed.
Yeah, get it done. And it was nice, though, so I had to go through that. And I told my wife I'm taking off. Came back, and the first year was good, good management. I liked it. And then we had a management change. And it was honestly the worst situation I've ever worked. I've worked with bad managers. I've been able to deal with them. It was horrific. I resigned because of that.
You resigned?
Well, not resigned. I retired early. I apologize. I misspoke. I retired early because of that. Just a good leader is going to look out for their troops. Number one, a fucking good leader will look out for their troops over anything. And you have a lot of individuals that get into certain leadership positions that their only desire is to move up the chain. Fuck everybody else, burn people to the ground. I'm going to make myself look good, and they don't care about the troops. Now, I had a couple, I'm not saying I had some good leaders there. I did have some good leaders. Brian, John, a couple guys that were like solid fucking guys that looked out for their troops. They realized, you know what? The message from on top it's kind of bullshit, but you got to do it. And I'd be like, you know what? I appreciate you speaking frankly. I'll hook you up. We'll work together because other guys, we got to do it this way. You got to do it because I'm the boss. It's like, really? Fuck you. And it's ridiculous.
Yeah, bro. It's you can respect somebody being straight up with you.
100%. I've had to ask my guys before, and you've had to do it too. And I tell my kids this: sometimes you got to eat a shit sandwich.
Oh, all the time,
and you
dude.
can either smile and eat it,
Right.
or you can be forced down your throat. Either, but you know what? It's a lot easier when it's, hey, dude, we're gonna eat this shit sandwich together.
Right.
You and I. It's gonna suck. It's gonna be terrible. Let's get it done. I'm gonna lead you how to do. I'm gonna take that first bite. In fact,
Yeah.
as opposed to here, boom, eat the whole thing.
Because it's disrespectful, bro. It's almost like they try to insult your intelligence by lying to you.
Yeah.
Or I've been constantly dwelling on this lately,
Oh,
bro.
yeah.
Why I despised corrupt management.
Oh yeah, I've had some guys that were completely unqualified, had never done a job, and you look at him like, dude, have you ever fucking even arrested anybody?
Well, let me ask you this: did you have needed to be a border patrol agent before you can reach that position?
No, we had DEA guys. I think there was a former FBI guy there. We had CBP, Border Patrol, all different types of agencies.
Now these
air
bad
marshals.
these bad leaders that you're talking about, were they also incompetent?
Yes, for sure. In my opinion, they were.
Right.
Yeah, do as I say, not do as I do. Type of thing. It was just a really bad situation.
But you
And-
lasted 4 years,
Well,
man.
I got lucky,
Were
bro.
you
I
white
got
knuckling
lucky.
it?
So, oh yeah, for sure. That first year was good. Management changed, and you could see the writing on the wall. Guys they promoted were unqualified, had no field experience whatsoever. In fact, to this day, I know that the troops don't respect them because I talk to these guys, right?
Right.
And it's a travesty. They've had some good leaders. Don't get me wrong. I've had some great ASACs there, guys that came and left, and luckily COVID hit. COVID hit when I was there, and we all kind of were working from home for like a year and a half, teleworking. Couldn't go out and physically interview people.
How was that for you?
It was very challenging at first because I wasn't used to working at home. I'm a people person. I need to connect with people. I need to talk. I'm a social person, and it was challenging. My kids were home. It was tough at that time, and so was the time management. That was tough, right? It was really hard. Now all I do is telework, so it's a lot easier for me. So that was kind of hard at first, but it was a blessing in disguise because I didn't have to deal with any of the bullshit, right? Then as I start to come back, right, I'm realizing, man, I gotta get out of here. I gotta get the fuck out of here really quick, really bad. And I'm telling you, I had two decent cases there dealing with true corruption. The rest were,
Wild goose chases?
a lot
Witch
were
hunts?
a lot were wild goose chases. A lot were not something I would deem honorable. Just minor violations of policy that they want you to exploit. And I said, this is not me. I don't want to do this. Right? You give me a corrupt agent and you've done something fucking wrong, I'll go after you. I'll make sure you go to jail. Right? But if you're doing some minor policy,
What was the verbal direction you were given from the top?
It wasn't necessarily verbal direction. I mean, they wanted you to go investigate the policy, exploit every lead. I can't dog them on that. I just didn't agree with going after these guys on some of these. I really didn't. I couldn't stomach it because it was so unbelievably minor. Like this guy, there was a leadership issue. At some point, this should have been addressed.
Right.
And obviously, it escalated to the point where these other leaders, not in OPR, more in Border Patrol or CBP, didn't know how to address it because you look at the history and it could have been rectified there. It could have been, hey, Hector,
Right.
you fucked up on this. We need to address this right now. Done. Handle it.
Right.
And they have to escalate. And a lot of people say, well, I don't want to deal with this. I'm just going to report it to Internal Affairs. You deal with a bunch of bullshit cases.
That's the problem with the public sector as opposed to the private sector. But yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
man.
But so luckily towards the end, I got detailed to INA, which is International Affairs for CBP. And I had a lot of international experience. Did a lot of deployments down south. And so I was overseeing Guatemala and Belize as a CBP country manager, which was really cool. I love that part. But then, management starts coming back and, literally like making what I would consider threats. Like, hey, you're going to lose your car. You're going to lose this. You're not going to be covered under the office. We're going to cut your pay. And I'm like, you know what? This is bullshit. So I went back. I left that INA position with the complete intention of retiring, going back and saying, I'm going to get there. I'm going to write it out until I get to retirement. And, a lot of guys wait till the end of the year to collect the additional money, your leave and whatnot. The day I turned 50, that pay period before, I didn't even tell anybody. I just submitted my paperwork. I told my wife, I can't deal with this. I'm fucking done. If I was still in the patrol or I had good management, I'd still be working. Because I absolutely and unequivocally loved I had a fucking magical career. I had great bosses. I had a couple of bad ones, but
Yeah.
good leaders, good bosses. The fucking troops are amazing, amazing teams. You get a couple of hiccups here and there along the road, but it's part of doing business, right?
Yeah.
And I may still be employed, you know, not knowing what I know now. I'm glad I left because private sector is a much bigger world.
Correct.
But I think I'd still been in. I really do. I love
a lot of people, though, man.
I miss it.
There's your experience is not unique in the sense that a lot of people hung it up before they wanted to,
100%.
because of the environment they were put in.
Yeah.
To fucking include myself, dude.
Yeah, exactly. You're not alone. I've listened to to you speak, and I'm like, man, you're speaking to the choir. You know, it happens a lot.
Holy shit, dude. So what is it you do now? Because you have the Pacheco Advisory Group?
Yeah, Pacheco Advisory Group. You know, I started off like, I had some experience doing Muay Thai and whatnot and defensive tactics. So I started teaching at local casinos, not intending to start a business at all. Just something to do when I retired, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of exploded. I do training, de-escalation tactics, police tactics for security officers. I do it at the Wild Animal Park. I do it at all these different casinos, the Hilton Hotel, trying to expand that. I teach any class you can imagine, working in high-risk environments, executive protection, de-escalation, going down south to Central America. Here shortly, I'll be teaching the military down there on border operations.
That's awesome.
How do you do border ops? How do you cut sign? How do you set up a drag? How do you interview people? How do you determine your threat in these specific regions? Because a lot of these people don't have to deal with that, and they've never been exposed to it.
Right.
So we've done it, and we want to show them. Not that we know everything, but these are the best practices.
This
is what we've done, and it's worked. Maybe it'll work for you.
You're definitely qualified, man,
thanks,
to
bro.
do that. You also wrote a book.
I wrote a book called, I co-authored it, On the Line Inside the U.S. Border Patrol. I was early on, I was training at Ken Shamrock's Lions Den. Remember Ken Shamrock?
Yeah. Where's Lions Den? Temecula area?
No, in Chula Vista, off of 3rd and Anita.
Yeah. I don't remember that
I was
one,
in
bro.
third
I remember,
Anita,
what's his name? Brandon Vera?
Brandon Vera. I trained at his gym for a little bit. He had a great gym, great kickboxer, man, great Muay Thai fighter. But I'm a you know who Shamrock is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Come on, bro.
Yeah. So I I met him in one of my fights, and I came to San Diego. I started training there, and I was one of the main striking coaches there. I did a lot of sparring with him and some of the really UFC guys. It was an eye opener. It was a good experience. Good place to be, and that's where I kind of realized, man, I got a knack for this teaching thing. I like it, And
Where can people find your book?
You can find the book on Amazon.
Amazon?
Yeah, Amazon, On the Line Inside U.S. Border Patrol.
Now, do you have a website for your...
Yeah, you can go to PachecoAdvisoryGroup.com. And same for my Instagram, Pacheco Advisory Group. You can see all the great stuff we're doing, the training, the executive protection consulting, all the capacity building we're doing. So, yeah, come check us out. Thank you for the plug, Hector.
Absolutely, 100%, man. Any last closing words you want to say to the crowd, bro? It's an honor having you here, dude.
You know what? Thank you for having me on. To the men and women of the United States Border Patrol, thank you for doing your job. I'm glad you're finally able to do what you're doing. You do an honorable profession, and I applaud you. I miss it like you wouldn't believe. I miss the adrenaline. But more than anything, I miss the brotherhood. Especially with the patrol, this esprit de corps that exists within the Border Patrol. It's unlike anywhere I've ever been.
Cool.
Because you go places, I work with people now in the private sector, and you'll be talking, oh, yeah, I was a Border Patrol agent for 3 years or 5 years or 7 years, and you have this common experience, which is unique amongst law enforcement, right? And I think that's the thing I miss the most, that brotherhood. Yeah.
Definitely, dude. But again, dude, thank you for coming on, bro. There you guys have it. Another banger for you guys. If you like what you saw, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Love you. Keep pushing forward.
Unhinged mind, Hector's legend engraved. Living life raw, never been tamed. From the hood to the pen, truth and tales bend. Hector Bravo unhinged, story never ends.